Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being truly well-informed. Today, we're plunging headfirst into something, well, fundamental. Power, how it works, why people seek it, the raw mechanics of it all.
And our guide for this is The 48 Laws of Power. It's a book people talk about a lot, often with strong feelings.
Exactly. And look, we're not here to say these laws are morally right, not at all. But we want to dissect it, treat it like a strategic handbook. It offers this unique lens on influence, doesn't it? On human interaction.
It really does. What's striking is the sheer scope. It tries to distill insights from, over 3,000 years of history?
Yeah, it's ambitious.
It claims to show why some people rise, reach these incredible heights, while others just fall. Our mission, really, is to unpack that, to find the surprising facts, the core ideas, and help you see those subtle power dynamics playing out around us.
Okay, so let's start with something that feels foundational to almost all these laws. Perception. It seems so much of power isn't about who you actually are.
Who people think you are.
Yes?
It's all about shaping appearance.
Which leads us right into Law 4. Always say less than necessary.
And the idea here isn't just, don't say stupid things. It's deeper. It's about the psychological weight of silence.
How so?
Well, if you talk too much, explain everything, you become ordinary. Easy to figure out, easy to dismiss. But if you're concise, even a bit vague.
You create mystery.
Exactly. An aura. You force others to interpret, to fill in the gaps, and often they fill them in ways that make you seem more impressive, more profound than you might actually be.
That's fascinating. It's not just your words, but the space around them. I'm thinking of that story about Michael Arlen, the screenwriter. He was down on his luck, runs into Louis B. Mayer.
Studio head, right?
Yeah. Mayer asks what he's up to. Arlen just says something brief, non-committal, like, oh, I was just talking to Sam Goldwyn.
Doesn't elaborate.
Nope. And Mayer, clearly intrigued, just says, well, don't buy any horses. Instantly, Arlen seems important, connected, all from saying almost nothing.
It's a perfect example. Or think about Louis XIV's court.
Sun King.
Right. His courtiers would debate endlessly, trying to impress. But the king, he'd speak rarely, concisely. And when he did, even trivial things sounded like major pronouncements, weighty.
Because he controlled the scarcity of his words.
Precisely. And people project onto that silence. They read into it. Often they read positive things, things that give you an advantage. Your power grows in their imagination.
And that perceived power, that aura, ties directly into reputation, right?
Sure.
Law 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Reputation is presented as the cornerstone. It lets you intimidate, win, sometimes without lifting a finger. But if it slips...
You're exposed. Vulnerable.
Very. A strong reputation magnifies your strengths. It commands respect, even fear, almost automatically. Think about Erwin Rommel in World War II.
The Desert Fox.
Exactly. His reputation for cunning, for, unpredictable genius in North Africa, it was immense. His smaller forces often seemed bigger, more dangerous, just because of his name. He won battles on reputation before they even started.
Wow. But it's not just defensive, is it? The law suggests you can attack reputations, too.
Oh, definitely. Opening holes in an enemy's reputation can be devastating. B.T. Barnum was apparently a master of this early on, using publicity to shape perceptions, sometimes negatively for rivals.
And that anecdote about Edison and Tesla sharing a Nobel Prize?
Right. The story goes, Edison refused. He wouldn't share the stage with Tesla, whose fame, while significant, wasn't quite as solid, maybe. Edison guarded his own towering reputation fiercely. It was a way to maintain his dominance.
Brutal. This constant crafting of image, it links to Law 25, doesn't it? Recreate yourself.
It does. This one challenges the whole idea of a fixed, authentic self, especially in the public eye.
Which feels very counterintuitive today. We're always told, be yourself.
Well, this law says, don't just accept the role society gives you. Forge a new identity, one that commands attention. Make it dramatic. Think of your public actions as a performance.
Like Julius Caesar.
Perfect example. He wasn't just a general or politician. He performed power. The grand spectacles, the triumphs, even those famous purple robes. It was all calculated theater to build his image, larger than life.
It really is theatrical. George Sand, the writer.
Adopted male dress, smoked cigars, talked like a man.
But not because she wanted to be a man, right? It was a strategy.
A performance. To gain access, freedom, power in a male-dominated world. A conscious creation for public consumption.
Or FDR's 100 Days, that dramatic shift.
Yes, the period of silence after the election, then boom, a whirlwind of action. It created this incredible sense of anticipation, then decisiveness. Made him look like the savior figure the country needed.
So power requires acting skills.
In a sense, yes, self-control, molding your appearance, your emotions, your actions to fit the situation. Like Proteus, the Greek sea god who could change shape. It's about controlling perception, controlling what's in other people's heads.
Okay, so controlling perception is key. But what about actively influencing actions? Getting people to do what you want, maybe without them even realizing it. That seems darker, more manipulative.
Well, this is where we get into strategies of subtle influence and, yes, sometimes deception. Take Law 12. Use selective honesty and generosity.
Selective honesty sounds like an oxymoron.
It does, but the idea is powerful. One single, sincere-seeming act of honesty or generosity can apparently cover up a whole lot of dishonesty.
Why would that work?
Because people want to trust. Our first instinct is often to take things at face value, and we value honesty. So one unexpected, seemingly genuine act can lower someone's guard completely.
Like Count Lustig, the con man.
Oh, the Al Capone story, yeah.
He cons Capone out of 50 grand, promises a big return, then comes back after 2 months, gives back 45 grand, says the deal fell through.
Claims failure, acts honest.
And Capone is so impressed by this supposed integrity from a known con artist, he gives Lustig $5,000 back as a reward.
It's incredible, isn't it? Lustig played on Capone's expectations and flipped them. Or Duke Wu of Chang in ancient China, showering a rival kingdom with gifts, making them feel safe.
Right before attacking them. Lowering their guard through generosity.
It's a calculated move to create vulnerability. And that ties into needing information, which is Law 14. Pose as a friend, work as a spy.
Okay, work as a spy sounds pretty intense.
It basically means knowledge is power. Knowing your rivals, even your allies' secrets, their weaknesses, their real intentions, that gives you immense control over events.
So how do you get that knowledge without, obviously spying?
You gather intelligence subtly. Joseph Duveen, the art dealer.
The one who sold to all the millionaires?
Right. He reportedly had his clients' household staff butlers, maids, on his own payroll.
Seriously?
That's the story. Gave him inside info on their tastes, their insecurities, when they might be receptive to buying a particular painting. He seemed charming, intuitive, but he was collecting data.
Wow. That's thorough. It reminds me of that tactic mentioned about a king testing his courtiers.
Ah, yes, giving one courtier some false secret information about another.
And then watching to see if the second courtier's behavior changes. If it doesn't, the first one kept the secret. Loyal. Gets promoted.
It's a way to gauge loyalty and information flow indirectly. Very cunning.
Okay, but what if you have to do something unpleasant? Something that could damage your carefully crafted reputation?
That brings us to Law 26. Keep your hands clean.
Meaning,
use scapegoats, use intermediaries, let someone else take the fall or do the dirty work so you appear virtuous, efficient, uninvolved in anything messy.
this feels ruthless. Like Chow in China, the grain shortage story.
Army's about to mutiny. He doesn't have enough grain.
So he blames his own grain distribution officer, publicly accuses him of corruption.
Has him beheaded publicly, shifts all the blame, instantly stops the mutiny. The soldiers are stunned into obedience.
Even though Cao Cao privately arranges for the officer's family to be cared for, it's pure political theater.
Cold, but effective. Or Cesar Borgia.
With his minister, De Orco.
Diorco was brutal in pacifying a region for Borgia, making enemies. So Borgia has him arrested, tried, and then.
Publicly dismembered in the town square. Horrific.
But the effect. The people who hated Diorco saw Borgia as a dispenser of justice, not the source of the cruelty. He distanced himself from the brutality while still benefiting from it, kept his hands clean, publicly at least.
It's a pattern, isn't it? Using others. Mao letting the Japanese weaken the nationalists in the Chinese Civil War.
Using them as a cat's paw, as the book puts it, letting an enemy do your dirty work for you. It preserves your own strength while achieving your objective. These laws really show power isn't always about direct force. It's often manipulation, strategy, playing the long game.
Definitely. Let's shift then to how you manage relationships and resources strategically, because it's not just about perception or deception, it's about building a solid foundation.
Absolutely. And that brings us to Law 11, make people dependent on you.
Okay, so this isn't just about being liked or respected.
No, it's about being needed. The idea is the true, lasting power comes not just from your own strength, but from others relying on your unique skills or services. Make yourself indispensable.
So they can't easily get rid of you.
Exactly. Because the cost to them would be too high. Otto von Bismarck is a great example.
In Prussia?
Yes. Early in his career, he had few allies. Instead of trying to join the powerful factions where he might be sidelined, he deliberately allied himself with weaker rulers.
Why?
Because they needed him. They became dependent on his intelligence, his skills. It gave him incredible leverage over them.
That's smart. It reminds me of Harry Cohn, the studio head at Columbia Pictures.
The anti-communist.
Right. But he refused to fire John Howard Lawson, a screenwriter accused of being a communist during the Red Scare. Everyone else was getting blacklisted.
But Cohn kept him.
Yes, because Lawson wrote for Humphrey Bogart, and Bogart was Cohn's biggest star. That chain of dependence, Cohn needed Bogart, Bogart needed Lawson, it trumped politics. Lawson was indispensable.
A perfect illustration. And this idea of controlling relationships, not being controlled by them, connects to Law 20. Do not commit to anyone.
That sounds isolating.
It can seem that way, but strategically, the argument is that commitment limits your freedom. It makes you predictable, vulnerable. If you remain independent, aloof.
You become more desirable.
You force others to court you. You maintain the initiative. You don't get dragged into their conflicts or obligations.
Who really mastered this?
Queen Elizabeth I is the classic case study. The Virgin Queen.
Or refused to marry.
Right. Played potential suitors and entire nations off against each other for decades. She kept everyone hoping, kept them guessing, but never gave away her independence or her kingdom's power by committing to one alliance.
Masterful. What about in other fields?
Picasso. Once he was famous, he never tied himself to a single art dealer. He kept them all competing for his latest work, gave him total control over his market and his art.
And Isabella d'Este in Renaissance Italy, navigating those complex politics.
She did it by appearing interested in all the powerful factions, offering help, gathering information, but never fully aligning with any single one. Her court became this neutral, respected ground everyone needed, precisely because she wasn't committed. She was the hub.
Maintaining independence seems key, which probably relates to Law 40. Despise the free lunch.
Exactly. Nothing is truly free.
What's the danger then? Taking a gift?
The danger is the hidden string, the obligation. Free offers can be traps designed to create gratitude, guilt, or dependence. Paying your own way ensures your independence. You owe nothing.
So accepting favors actually weakens you.
It can, subtly. It creates a debt, even if it's just psychological. Consider the Duchess of Marlborough and the architect Vanbrugh.
Building Blenheim Palace?
She had immense wealth, but deliberately withheld payments from him. Sadistically, really. It wasn't about the money. It was a power play, keeping him dependent, reminding him who was in charge. He died apparently unable to even enter his greatest creation because she controlled the purse strings.
That's incredibly cruel, a stark contrast to someone like Baron de Rothschild in France.
Who did the opposite in a way. He spent lavishly, almost wasting money on French culture, art, opera, charities.
Why?
To overcome the perception of being a greedy foreign banker, he essentially bought his social acceptance, paying his way into the elite by demonstrating generosity and cultural investment. He paid and gained independence from negative stereotypes.
Okay, we've covered perception, deception, relationships. Now let's get into the sharp end. Confrontation, timing, attack, mastering the actual flow of power struggles.
Right. And this section starts with perhaps the most brutal law, Law 15. Crush your enemy. Totally.
No half measures.
None. The argument is stark. A wounded enemy will recover and seek revenge. If you're in a conflict you intend to win, you must eliminate the threat completely. Annihilation or rendering them utterly powerless is the only guarantee against future trouble.
The story of Liu Pang and Shang Yu in ancient China really hammers this home.
It's chilling. Shang Yu keeps capturing Liu Pang, or his family.
Captures Liu's father, threatens to boil him.
And Liu basically says, go ahead, but send me some soup, since we're sworn brothers and he's your father too. Ice cold.
While Xiang keeps showing mercy, letting Liu escape.
And every time, Liu comes back stronger, until he finally defeats Xiang, driving him to suicide. Shang's mercy was his downfall. Liu's ruthlessness secured his victory.
A brutal lesson in finality. So if you can't crush something, what then? That sounds like Law 36. Disdain things you cannot have.
Exactly. If you show desire for something you can't get, you make yourself look weak. You give that unattainable thing power over you. Better to just turn your back. Act indifferent, like it never mattered.
The old sour grapes fable, but as a power strategy.
Pretty much. Think of Pancho Villa being chased by the U.S. Army under Pershing.
A massive expedition.
Huge. But Villa just kept slipping away, mocking them. The more Pershing chased this thing he couldn't catch, the more ridiculous the U.S. looked, and the bigger Villa's legend grew in Mexico. Pershing's pursuit amplified Villa's power by showing Villa couldn't be caught.
And Henry VIII with the Pope.
Similar dynamic. The Pope threatens excommunication over Henry's divorce.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Huge.
But Henry doesn't negotiate, doesn't plead. He just ignores it, disdains the threat, breaks away entirely, creates his own church. By refusing to acknowledge the Pope's power over him, he nullified it.
Powerful stuff. Now, what about controlling the emotional state of a conflict? Law 39. Stir up waters to catch fish.
This one's about emotional leverage.
Yeah.
While you need to stay calm and rational, if you can make your opponent angry or emotional,
They make mistakes.
they lose perspective. Anger clouds judgment, makes them predictable, rash. You stay calm, they get flustered, you gain the upper hand.
Napoleon, usually the master strategist, fell for this.
Apparently so. In that confrontation with Talleyrand and Fouché, his ministers.
He suspected them of plotting.
Yes, he flew into a rage, yelling, accusing. But Talleyrand just leaned calmly against the mantelpiece, looking indifferent.
Which must have infuriated Napoleon even more.
Exactly. It made Napoleon ramble, reveal his own anxieties, lose control of the situation. Talleyrand's calm amplified Napoleon's fury and weakness.
And Selassie in Ethiopia, dealing with his relative Ras Gugsa.
Who was plotting against him? Selassie knew. So instead of confronting him directly, he ordered Gugsa to lead an army against some rebellious tribe Selassie had previously ignored.
Put him in an impossible position.
Forced his hand. Gugsa had to either refuse, revealing his disloyalty, or march to a likely defeat, weakening him. He marched, was defeated, and his plot collapsed. Selassie stirred the waters, forced Gugsa out into the open.
Very calculated. Okay, what if the problem isn't widespread emotion, but one specific troublemaker? Law 42. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter.
This identifies that often resistance or trouble originates from a single strong leader, the shepherd. If you neutralize that key individual,
The followers lose direction, disperse.
precisely. Take Pope Boniface VIII wanting control of Tuscany. Florence was resisting strongly.
And Dante Alighieri was a key figure there.
Eloquent speaker, passionate defender of the Republic, the intellectual and moral backbone, the shepherd. Boniface couldn't easily attack Florence directly.
So he targeted Dante.
Used a mix of threats and false promises of negotiation to lure Dante away to Rome. With Dante gone, Florentine resistance lost its focus, its voice. It weakened significantly, allowing Boniface to gain more influence.
Isolating the leader. Makes sense. Looking ahead, Law 29 stresses planning all the way to the end.
This is about foresight. Not just hoping for the best, but anticipating all the consequences, the obstacles, the potential negative outcomes of your actions. Thinking several steps ahead.
Like Bismarck planning German unification.
Exactly. He had a clear long-term goal. Even when his generals wanted to push further after military victories, he held them back because he saw how it could jeopardize the ultimate political aim. He saw the end game.
Unlike the Athenians in Sicily.
A classic example of the opposite. They launched a massive invasion with vague goals, improvised along the way, didn't anticipate the difficulties, and ended in total disaster. They didn't plan to the end.
Which seems like a good transition to Law 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for, knowing when to stop.
Yes, the danger of victory itself. Pushing too far, getting arrogant, overreaching, it almost always leads to a backlash. Success breeds arrogance, and arrogance leads to downfall.
Like Cyrus the Great. Built this huge Persian empire.
Incredible success. But then he ignored warnings, got greedy for more, attacked Queen Tamiris in the Massage Day.
And it ended badly.
He was killed, his army defeated, his empire started to unravel. He went past the mark, didn't know when enough was enough. Success went to his head.
And wrapping up the section on timing and strategy, we have Law 48. Assume formlessness.
This is about ultimate adaptability. Being predictable makes you vulnerable. Having a fixed plan, a rigid structure, it's a target.
So be like water, fluid.
Exactly. Adaptable, unpredictable. Never letting your enemy know your next move because you might not even know it until the moment comes. Think of Sparta.
The ultimate rigid military state.
Won the Peloponnesian War against Athens. But afterwards, their rigid system couldn't cope with the influx of Athenian money, the new influences. It corroded them from within. Their very form became their weakness.
Contrast that with Rommel again, his desert tactics.
Lightning fast, constantly changing, disregarding rigid orders, operating fluidly. He confused the enemy's minds because they couldn't pin him down.
Or Catherine the Great in Russia.
A foreigner ruling a vast, complex empire. She didn't impose rigid German structures. She adapted, improvised, flowed with the moods of the Russian court and people, made them feel her commands were their own desires. Formless, adaptable leadership.
So flexibility is the ultimate strength here. Okay, finally, let's look at navigating change and securing a lasting legacy. This feels crucial.
It is. And it starts with the paradox in Law 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once.
People want change, but also hate it.
Intellectually, yes, we see the need for progress. But personally, change is disruptive, scary. Too much innovation, too fast, feels like chaos. It breeds resistance, even revolt.
Thomas Cromwell and the English Reformation.
A prime example of going too far, too fast. Helping Henry VIII break from Rome was one thing, but Cromwell pushed aggressively, dissolving monasteries, persecuting Catholics harshly.
It created terror and backlash.
Widespread rebellion. It destabilized the kingdom to such an extent that even Henry realized it was too much, too fast. And it ultimately cost Cromwell his head. The pace of reform was fatal.
How did others manage change better?
Cosimo de' Medici, in Florence, he gradually, subtly undermined the old republic while outwardly respecting its traditions, its forms. His radical changes felt like gentle improvements, not a revolution. People barely noticed power shifting until it was done.
It's interesting you mentioned science resisting change, too. Darwin, Salk.
Yes, even fields supposedly built on innovation often cling to old habits and resist truly radical new ideas. Max Planck famously said science advances one funeral at a time. New truths often win because the old guard dies off, not because they're convinced.
A sobering thought about human nature. What about following in someone else's footsteps? Law 41. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes.
This highlights a real challenge. Succeeding someone legendary is incredibly difficult.
Why is that?
Often, the great man had to claw his way up from nothing. Made him tough, resilient, maybe domineering. The successor, often a son, inherits the position, the wealth,
Starts with advantages.
but lacks the same drive, the same struggle that forged the predecessor. They become cautious, maybe intimidated by the legacy, afraid to lose what was gained. They rarely surpass the original.
Like Louis XV after Louis XIV.
Exactly. Inherited Versailles, the symbol of his grandfather's absolute power, but under Louis XV it became stale. A pleasure palace, disconnected from the people. He maintained but didn't build. Lost loyalty, paved the way for revolution.
Whereas Alexander the Great.
Made it his mission to outdo his father, Philip II. Philip was hugely successful, but Alexander wasn't content. Conquered Persia, pushed into India, relentless ambition to create his own, even greater legacy. He refused to just inherit, he had to surpass.
That drive makes the difference. Okay, last one. Law 46. Never appear too perfect. This seems counterintuitive again. Don't you want to seem perfect?
You might think so, but appearing too good, too talented, too successful, without any apparent flaws, it breeds envy. And envy, the law warns, is silent but incredibly dangerous.
People resent perfection in others.
They can. It makes them feel inferior. They might admire you outwardly but secretly wish for your downfall. Displaying minor flaws or occasionally asking for help can actually make you seem more human, less threatening.
The painter Turner, that story is amazing.
J.M.W. Turner, yeah. His painting Cologne was hung next to arrivals at an exhibition. Turner's was brilliant, vibrant.
Too brilliant, maybe.
He thought so. He worried it completely overshadowed the other painting. So discreetly, he took some lamp black, a dark pigment, and just toned his own painting down, muted it slightly.
Knowing he could wash it off later.
Exactly. It was a temporary act of strategic self-effacement to avoid inciting envy in his peer. Incredibly tactful.
And Picasso changing styles constantly.
That's seen as another way to manage this. By constantly shifting, reinventing himself, sometimes even making ugly art, he kept people off balance. They couldn't get too comfortable, couldn't feel they fully understood or owned his genius. It prevented that dangerous familiarity and potential superiority complex in his audience.
Wow. So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear these laws offer a pretty intense framework for looking at human interaction.
They do. And again, it's not about endorsing them as a moral code. It's about recognizing the strategies.
Understanding the hidden motives, the subtle games that might be playing out under the surface. It's not about being cynical, perhaps, but just well-informed, aware.
Exactly. Because whether we like it or not, power dynamics exist. It's a game of appearances, as we saw. A game of psychology, strategic patience. Understanding these underlying currents helps you navigate more effectively, whether you're trying to gain influence, keep it, or just avoid being manipulated yourself.
It's about seeing the strings, maybe.
Seeing the strings, that's a good way to put it.
So the question for you listening is, How might recognizing these hidden dynamics, these laws, change how you look at your own interactions day to day? And what assumed truths about power and success might you start to question now?
Welcome to The Explainer. You know, some books you read, and some books are whispered about as being, well, dangerous. Today, we're cracking open one of those. Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. It's been called ruthless, brilliant, and honestly, it's a playbook for the hidden game of human strategy.
So this quote right here, this is pretty much the foundation of the whole book. Greene's big argument is that our emotions are the #1 thing getting in the way of power. They cloud your judgment. And anger? Oh man, he says that's the absolute worst. It doesn't just wreck your own strategy, it actually makes your opponents even more determined.
Okay, so how do you get good at this game that's being played all around us? Well, here's the thing. The book's core message is that you don't have a choice. You can't just decide not to play. You're already on the board. And if you ignore the rules, you don't get a pass. You just become a pawn for someone else to move.
And let's be super clear about what we're doing here. We are not treating this as some kind of moral guide. It's not about good versus evil. Greene himself calls it a handbook on the arts of indirection. Our job is just to unpack the strategies he describes, strategies he pulled from like 3,000 years of history. We're talking everyone from Machiavelli to Haile Selassie.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the big idea, this unspoken game of power. Then we're going to dig into some key strategies. Why you've got to guard your reputation fiercely, how to master the art of deception, using patience to outwit your opponents. And then we'll get to the ultimate power, which is all about being formless.
First up, the unspoken game of power. Now, the book's fundamental claim is that this whole power thing, it isn't just for politicians or big-shot CEOs. Nope. Greene says these dynamics are happening all the time, in every single part of our lives. Yeah, even at the office or at the dinner table with family.
And this is really the core problem the book is trying to address. Greene's word for it is that most of us just bungle with power. We react with emotion instead of thinking things through, and we end up hurting ourselves and the people around us. So the idea isn't to become evil, it's to become skilled. To understand how this stuff works so you can actually navigate the world without, causing a mess.
Okay, let's get into our first major pillar of power, and this one is huge. According to Greene, so much of power is just about perception. Your reputation, it's not about whether people like you, it's your shield and your sword. It's your first line of attack and your best defense. Just look at this quote. It totally reframes how you think about reputation, right? It's not just some passive thing that reflects who you are. No, it's an active tool. It's a weapon. A powerful reputation can literally win battles for you before they even start, just by intimidating your opponents. You don't even have to do anything.
So the big takeaway is that your reputation isn't just something that happens to you. You have to actively build it, make it rock solid, and defend it against attacks. Greene brings up P.T. Barnum as a master of this. The guy knew that any attention, even negative attention from a scandal, was a form of power. For him, being talked about badly was way better than not being talked about at all.
All right, now we're wading into some seriously controversial water. This next one is all about deception. And in this book, deception isn't a bad thing. In fact, Greene calls it maybe the most potent weapon you can have in this game. And the logic is, well, it's brutally simple. If nobody knows what you're really planning, how can they possibly stop you? You can lead them down one path while you're actually doing something completely different. By the time they figure it out, game over. And there's this fantastic story about the Ethiopian leader Haile Selassie that shows this perfectly. Okay, so picture this. It's 1916. A young Haile Selassie is up against this incredibly powerful warlord named Ras Balcha, who's marching on the capital with a huge army. Selassie is totally outmatched. A straight-up fight would be suicide, so he's got to get clever.
Selassie knows his enemy, Balcha, is a paranoid guy, totally expecting some kind of trap. So what does he do? He creates a diversion, a smokescreen. He invites Balcha to a fancy banquet, but at the same time, he stages this massive, loud, impossible-to-miss military parade a few miles away. It's the perfect decoy to grab the attention of a suspicious mind.
So, while Balcha's main army is gawking at this big, flashy military show, Selassie's men are making their real move.
They quietly slip in, surround the banquet hall, and disarm Balch's personal bodyguards. Just like that, the warlord is powerless, totally stripped of his protection. He has no choice but to surrender. And the best part? Not a single shot was fired.
And this is what makes that story so brilliant. It shows how you can use an opponent's own psychology against them. Selassie gave the paranoid guy exactly what he was looking for, an obvious threat, and that fixation totally blinded him to the real danger, which was happening right behind him. Okay, so moving on from deception, let's talk about the bigger picture, long-term strategy, because this is where a lot of people get it wrong. The book argues that we often confuse being aggressive and busy with being effective, and that right there is a huge mistake. See, real power, according to Greene, isn't about running around putting out fires. It's actually the opposite. It's about being patient, setting traps, and making other people come to you. It's the difference between being a chess player who is always reacting and being the player who sets the board so your opponent has no choice but to walk into your plan. Patience is your ultimate defense against making a stupid move.
And this all connects to this amazing Italian concept called sprezzatura. It basically means making really difficult things look totally effortless. You hide all the hard work, all the practice, all the clever tricks. Why? Because when people don't see you sweat, your achievements look more impressive, almost godlike. And that is way, way more intimidating.
And now we get to the final law, Law 48. And honestly, this might be the most important one. It ties everything else together. Think of it like this. If patience is your shield and deception is your sword, then being formless, that's your impenetrable armor. The logic is simple. If you're predictable, you're attackable. A clear plan gives your enemy something to aim at. But what if you're like water? You can't punch water. It's fluid, it adapts, it's always changing. It's impossible to get a grip on. And if they can't grasp you, they can't defeat you.
And here's the final and maybe most important twist in the whole book. Greene says the point of learning all these ruthless laws isn't just so you can go on the attack. No, the real reason is for defense. It's about recognizing these very same tactics when someone else tries to use them on you. Knowing the game is the only way to make sure you don't end up as somebody else's pawn.
And this quote nails it. This is the heart of that defense. The world is always changing, right? So betting that things will just stay the same is a recipe for disaster. But if you can stay fluid and adaptable, you can roll with the punches and even use that chaos to your advantage instead of letting it crush you.
So in the end, the worldview this book lays out is, well, it's pretty challenging. It argues that true power isn't about having an iron grip or using brute force. It's something much more subtle. It's about mastering the art of change, of ambiguity, and of understanding the deep, shifting currents of how people actually behave. Which leaves us with this final, kind of unsettling question from the philosopher Kierkegaard, which Greene quotes, "The world wants to be deceived." So, does it? Is that why these laws work so well? Because they tap into a dark part of human nature? Or is it because, deep down, we'd rather have a compelling story than the messy, uncomfortable truth? That's a thought that really gets to the core of why this book is still so powerful and so controversial today.